Okay, we're moving on to the valve body. I removed this spring. Recall that the little check ball fell out before. The spring goes here and the check ball goes between this part of the house of the casting and this little rooster comb. So if this can move up and down, and if you move it up, it'll allow enough space for the ball to fall out. So you can see how this works. As this moves, it moves the manual valve in and out of the bore. So why don't we start by just lifting this up and removing the manual valve. It's a really tight fit. And be careful with these. These are precisely machined to be just a couple thousandths smaller than the bore that they're going through. Don't drop them or nick them or anything. Alright, it looks like this part just comes out. This came out. Now there's a seal up here that it went through, so we're gonna take note of that. The rebuild kit most likely has a new one. And then this part comes out the bottom. So let's put these two parts to the side. Alright, we got a T25 bolt holding in this sensor here. And I'm just going to thread this back in so I know where it goes. So if we follow that to the other side, it leads us to this solenoid pack right here, which are also T25s. Okay, so there's the whole wiring harness. Again, I'm just going to thread these in so I don't have to keep track of them. So it looks like all these T25 bolts here are what hold this thing together, so I'm going to remove all of these. Okay, so there's 3 more bolts holding this in, and looks like this pipe is in the way, so I'm just gonna pry this end of the pipe out and then come on this side, pry this out. Looks like I can bend these little tabs back. So now I can pull that out, and then I believe these should be the last 3 bolts holding this together. Yep. Now this has been really easy because all the valve body bolts are exactly the same size. It doesn't always come like that. Alright, so we have the 2 halves and the separator plate. Okay, and this one comes out like that. Now there's a lot of check balls in this. Alright, we're going to have to take this apart. So yeah, all the check balls are in here. Now, check balls are one of the things that can be really daunting to people who haven't done this before, you know, because they're so small and they're so easy to be lost. But, you know, really, I remember when I first started doing this, the 2 things I was afraid of were, oh crap, I'm going to lose the check balls, and oh crap, I'm going to put the check balls in the wrong spot. But both of those things are silly. One, if you lose the check balls, it's not a big deal at all. You can get replacements at any transmission parts website or the dealer. They're not that expensive. And 2, it's really impossible to put these in the wrong spot because 1, you have the manual that will tell you everything, and 2, there's always spots that are obviously for check balls. You see here, there's a little spot right there, and I mean, these are just obvious spots, so it's not as daunting as it looks. Alright, so now, that being said, I'm going to remove all these check balls. Now, it's really important. Do not remove these with a magnet tool. And the reason for that is, when you do that, you have the ball will become slightly magnetized because it's in an external magnetic field. And when it's slightly magnetized, all the debris from the transmission that is magnetic, like from the clutches and everything of that nature, will be stuck to it, and it could impede valve body operation. Because think about it, the magnet in the pan is used to catch debris. You don't want the balls to catch debris. So let's see how many we got here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like 7 check balls. Before I take them out, I'm actually gonna take off this little bracket thing on the side. Alright, here's a little bracket with springs. Again, gonna thread these back where they go. Alright, now we can remove the check balls, and we're going to do so by first counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like 7, and then we're just going to go. They should be all out of there. Yep. Okay, we're going to put all of them in here. There's one big one. Alright, now we have this middle part, another separator plate being held in by the same T25 Torx. So now the separator plate should come off along with the filter. And alright. Alright, now we're going to work on removing each section of valve, disassembling each section of the valve body, starting with this one. So this one has a little housing for the accumulator in it, so first let's just take this housing off. Well, this plate's kind of getting in the way, so I'm just going to take the plate off. Alright, let's get this guy out of here. There's the piston. Gonna thread these bolts back in. Okay, so now we can finish taking these bolts off. So this is under spring pressure. Oh! Things keep flying in my face. Okay, there's a little cylinder in there. Alright, so whenever I take valve bodies apart, I like to just lay them in a certain, I call reference position. It's going to be like this, and just lay the valves out in sequential order wherever they come out. I hope I have enough room here. Actually, I'm going to turn it like this so I have enough room. Okay, so out of this valve there's a little plug here. So we have plug, then we have spring, goes behind the plug. Here's the spring here. So let's remove these valves. There's 2 that are open right here. So this one comes right out. So then we're just going to put it in the spring like that. What else we got in there? Another valve right here. Okay, so notice I laid the valves how they came out. And then we have one more that comes out on the side. And to get that out, there's a little retainer right here. And this is probably under spring pressure. So just put your finger in the front and be careful prying because this is aluminum. Yes, it's hardened, but still, it's aluminum. The screwdriver is steel. So here we go. So we have clip. Let's turn it back to okay. So we have clip, spring. What else is in there? Now the valves should slide in their bores. This one slides really nice. They're all seeming to slide pretty nice, which is good. Alright, we got two more valves, but they're behind this cover here. Alright, so let's put it back to our reference position. Get this plate out of the way. First I want to screw these bolts in. Okay, so back in our reference position, let's move you guys so you can see it. We're going to pull out, we got a valve, and then here we have this little plug. This one has a spring, and another valve that goes this way. This one has a spring, and I believe, so that's it for both. So now that we've arranged it like this, we know where each valve goes. Now we have the manual, but it's still good to do this. And I'm going to clean this, and then we're going to reinsert the valves. Now the valves, they seem to be sliding pretty well. Alright, so I've gone ahead and cleaned everything, and what we're going to do now is reinstall the valves, but first we need to lubricate them as well as the board. So let's have a little bowl of transmission fluid here. Pour some transmission fluid on it. So we have the spring first, and then this valve. Well, first you want to make sure, so the valves should fall on their own under gravity, and they shouldn't need too much help. So when I turn this over, it falls out. So if you find that a valve isn't falling under its own weight, what you can do is polish the bore. So right here I have 1000 grit sandpaper, really fine grit, and I'm just going to roll it up into a tight cylinder, and then after I do that, I'm going to put it in the bore. Damn, I gotta roll it up tighter than that. So you put it into the bore and then let it expand by itself, and then just twist back and forth, and we go up and down and back and forth, and just polish up that bore. And then once you do that, test your valve. So then you just keep doing that until the valve falls out under its own weight. Okay, so these valves move pretty freely now, and we're going to put them back in. So first we have the spring. This is the 3/4 timing timing valve. So there's one, and then next we have 3/4 quick valve. That's these guys. So this one goes in first. Just shake it until it goes all the way down, and then we got the spring, and then this plug. Alright, so now we're going to have to put this plate on and just push against the spring pressure. Just like that. So from here forward, every every valve body bolt is torqued to 34 inch-pounds. There we go. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to check all the valves on this side by dropping them in, seeing that they fall under their own weight. If they don't, we're going to polish them up and keep doing that until they fall under their own weight, and then put them back together. Now when you do that, make sure everything is lubricated very well. It won't fall under its own weight if it's not lubricated very well. Alright, so we're ready to put these guys in. We're going to start here. This is the 3/4 shift valve. Slide that in, let it drop. We get the spring. Well, we'll put the springs in last because they're going to be a pain. Then we have the converter clutch valve. And then we have the converter clutch timing valve. And then spring, 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 and then this one has a plug on it that we'll have to push down and then into the bore. So this top one up here has this little retainer, so we're just going to push this back. Reach in there with the screwdriver, just push it back, and then push this down over the spring. Okay, so that's that one. Alright, so this part's going to be tricky. So this guy is held in by a plug. So we push the plug into the bore. We have to hold that down or it's going to fly up in your face. And then at the same time, this big spring and the plug are held in by this accumulator body, which I've cleaned. So we're going to just push this down. You're going to hold this because it's going to both are flying up under spring pressure. Alright, next we have this piston right here. There's two scarf cut seals. Again, make sure these go on correctly. Alright, so I'm going to just put some transmission fluid all over. Alright, and now alright, so we've moved on to the other half of the valve body. So the first valve we have right here is the switch valve. And then we have the pressure regulator valve. And again, we're going to put them like that. So now we have this little cover on this side. So we have the cover with the two screws. We got a little plug here with a sleeve that moves in the middle. Then we got a valve here with a spring. Alright, we got some valves right here. I think this is kick down. There's another one in there. And this one's getting held up. This one is, this board's got to be polished up. There we go. Alright, now we have this cover over here. Actually, it's only 3. This one I think comes out on the other side after we take that plate off. Alright, so let's flip it over and do the other side. So we have a housing here with a little valve in here. Alright, so on this side we have this long spring, this shorter spring, and then this fatter spring. And then we got a valve here. That's it for that side. And we got a valve here for this. This is the shuttle valve. And then we have valve here. And that's it for that side. Alright, now we're going to flip her over. And then we got these bolts here. Alright, so this is the shuttle valve right here. So it looks like it has a little E-clip on it. Okay, there's the E-clip. And now there's a little top of the spring. Zoom in. Little spring top here. Then the spring itself. On the bottom, and we have the shuttle valve. Okay. So now up here we have a cover for the boost valve. We got a little retainer here to hold the spring in. We're going to just lift that up. And we got the spring. And then the boost valve. And there's a plug in here too that isn't coming out right away, so I'm just pushing it through. There we go. Now careful when you do that because you don't want to nick the valve body. Almost lost it. Nicking the valve body can cause valves to stick. Alright, so I'm going to clean this valve body, and then we're going to go about the same process of putting all the valves in, making sure they move freely. If they don't move freely, polish them up, and then putting it all back together. Alright, this is all clean. I'm just going to pour transmission fluid all over it. So why don't we start where we ended. the two top parts. So put the shuttle valve back. First we have this plug here. Well, let's polish that. Alright, so we polished out the valve, and then we're just going to lube up the shuttle valve and the plug. Yeah, and that's feels so much better. It was a little was hanging up before. So now after that we have the spring, and now we have this little retainer. So we're gonna push the spring back over the retainer. Make sure the spring is seated on the retainer nice and square. And then we have the cover. Sorry, in the last clips I was saying shuttle valve. This is actually the boost valve. This one's the shuttle valve on this side. So we're going to put the valve in. And then we have the spring over here. Put the valve all the way through and then pull it back and just push the E-clip on until it snaps into place. Make sure it's seated. There we go. So now we have this cover. Alright, so now we have all these guys to put back in. Alright, so we got these three guys. Just polished them up. And then we have the pressure regulator valve. We have these guys. I'm just going to try to put them all in as one assembly. There's a valve, spring, another valve, and a sleeve. This 2-3 shift valve was really hanging up in the bore, but now it's all polished and it falls right out under its own weight. So we're going to put that in there, and then the spring is on top of it. 1-2 shift valve that goes in. Oops. Watch out for these guys. Goes in the bore next to it. There we go. That one falls out under its own weight. Let's just test that one more time. Perfect. And now we have the spring. And then we have the 1-2 shift control valve It goes in right here. And let's just see if that falls out under its own weight. Yes. So that's looking pretty good. This one fell out. Here's the spring here. Almost forgot about this little mini valve body. So we have this little valve that goes up here. And this is just like the shuttle valve. There's a little spring with a retainer. Here's the spring. And now, let's get that valve out of here. Alright, I'm going to clean this up. There's very little resistance, but there is a little bit. So, I'm just going to polish this up. So you stick the roll in all the way down, let it expand. Spin it, do some thrust sanding while spinning. There we go. So now this is all good to go back together. Put the little valve in, put in the spring, and then put the spring retainer in and make sure the spring is seated squarely. And we have this guy here. Moves real nice. Alright, we can put this back. Alright, so now that that's back on, we're back together, we can put this on here. So this has a little cover, and we have 3 of the longer screws. So now this is going to go right here. Alright, so lastly we have this valve over here, we got the spring, this guy, and then the plug that goes over this, and then we have the plate. So this last section of Valvebody doesn't have any valves in it, so I'm just going to clean it, and then we can start putting this thing back together. Alright, it's come time to test these solenoids, so I usually just do a resistance test. Good solenoid is usually between 20 and 40-ish ohms. So what we're going to do is set our multimeter to 200 ohms resistance. Always measure your through resistance with nothing on it. So we got about a little less than half an ohm. So we're just going to put one lead on each of the pins for each solenoid. This is this first one. We have about 31, so that's good. Then we have the second one. We have about 31, so that's good. Alright, so now we're going to start putting the valve body back together. So we had this first part we worked on, then we have the separator plate. Next is this little intermediate valve body, but there's one check ball, and if you look at the manual, there's one check ball here, and that, if you just align it, it goes in this little spot right there. There's also a check ball that goes up here. And then we have this separator plate, and then on here we have this little plate here. Alright, now it's come time to put all the check balls back. Now I'm looking at the manual. There's a nice diagram for this on the manual. So I'm going to just orient it like it is on the manual. And I'm going to take, so the number 1 check ball goes right here. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to take each check ball and just put some Vaseline on it so it stays in place when we flip this over. So there's the number 1, the number 2 is right here. And all these check balls are the same size except for the number 3, which is right here and goes in the bigger slot. So, you know, even if worse comes to worse, you could figure out where these check balls go. Okay, now comes time to flip this guy over. So I believe it goes like this. I'm just gonna carefully flip him over. So these, using these bolts as guides really helped in this process. Alright, flip this over. And then put in the rest of the bolts. So don't forget to put the filter in, otherwise you'll have to take everything apart. But the new filter is of a cone shape rather than a cylinder shape, and it goes just like that. So now I'm going to put everything back together. Alright, now we have this pipe. I blew it out with compressed air and cleaned it. So we're going to install this end first and then route it underneath to here, push those in, and then we're going to bend these tabs back up. There we go. Alright, next I want to put this bracket back on, but looks like it goes underneath this valve body bolt. So I'm going to remove it. So we have this little adjuster bolt here, which I need to readjust. And we have the 2 springs. And I'm just going to put this on. And then push it down. Alright, next we have this shift lever mechanism. We have a seal right here that we're going to replace. So we're just going to put this seal in here like that. Alright, so the book says that the distance from the bottom of the spring to the plate on the top of it should be 1 5/16. So I've sort of just tried to reverse, because I thought this was a mounting bolt at first, but no, it's actually an adjusting screw. So I threw it all out of whack. So I tried to, you know, turn it approximately the same amount of turns as I unturned it, and when I measure this, let's see here, right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's right on the money, 1 5/16. Huh, what are the odds? So I got kind of a funny manual situation going on. Now I actually, so at first, the transmission website that I used to tell me which transmission was in this vehicle, that was either incorrect, or my landlord was incorrect in telling me the specs of the vehicle, engine size and whatever. Because eventually, at first I got this manual, which is the A904 manual, and the A904 is pretty much the same thing as the 42R8s, except it has 3 speeds. It doesn't have the overdrive section in the back. So I figured out eventually that this one was incorrect. So then I actually ordered, I couldn't find it online, then I actually ordered the actual A500 or 42RH manual. And this one, the only section on, it's very weird, the only section on valve bodies is actually just these 2 pages. And then they have these other 2 pages for the other model's valve body. And then I guess they got the check balls, but that's it. So there's nothing in rebuilding the valve body at all. But funny thing is that all that information is in the other manual on the A904, and they have the same everything. So I've kind of been using both back and forth. And you know, originally I said that there was no pattern to torque these down with because this doesn't say anything. But actually in that manual it says torque it in a counterclockwise or in a clockwise spiral. So I actually off camera I untightened these and tightened them all in a clockwise spiral. Okay, so now it comes time to put the manual valve back in, and looking at the diagram here, it looks like this end, let me lube it up. Looks like this end goes in first. And actually there's really only one way to put this in, because this part hooks on to the little lever assembly. So now we have this guy right here. Well, first let's put the spring in here. Then we have the little detent ball, and that's got to go between the rooster comb and that spring. So this might be a little tricky. Alright, this is proving to be very difficult. So it seems to be working, kind of, is to push it in all the way with my finger. Then you gotta line up the valve and then just aha! I got it. Man, that is tough. That took me a good 10 minutes to get that. Now I just have to make sure that this doesn't get moved up a little bit, because that will make the ball fall out, and then I have to do it all over again. Alright, next we have, and this is the last part, this shaft that goes up through this. So let's just... This little bolt's getting in the way. So I can either remove the bolt, or I can remove the rooster comb. I'm going to remove the bolt. It's going to be held in place by the other 2 bolts. Now this guy's getting in the way, and I think that's how it's supposed to work. So I'm going to have to remove the rooster comb, put this in first, and then put it back down. I'm going to do all that off camera though. Alright, so I put this through first. I decided to do this on camera because then you guys can see how it's done. And now I have another variable, and that's this shaft. I gotta make sure that doesn't fall out. So we got the spring with the ball, we got the valve in the right position, and we got the shaft, making sure that doesn't fall out. So I'm gonna push the ball in first. Oop! Yeah, be careful because this will go flying. Push the ball in first, in the bore, and then get the valve sort of lined up, and then push this down. Oh! Alright, so let's try this. It's kind of like halfway on. So let's push this in, move this, get the valve to the right spot. Oh! Push it in, move it to the right spot, and then we'll just... Alright, there we go. If you push it down, it sort of pushes the ball in. Come on, come on. Alright, I think we're good to go. Not entirely. Alright, so now we are good to go on the valve body. Well, we're not 100% done yet because I almost forgot to put on the solenoid pack. So we got a new gasket here. Let's figure out how it goes on. There we go. And then we're going to put the solenoid on like this. Okay, so I've routed the wire pretty close to the valve body. It mentions in the manual how wire routing is very important. So wired it around, bolt this sensor on, or this connector on, cleaned it up a little bit. Now we're going to replace these O-rings. Okay, now we're done with the valve body.